Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight interview series. I'm your host, Sonali Nigam. Today I'm joined by Jon Harrison, owner at One Black Bear. Hi, John. Thank you so much for joining
Oh,
us.
well, thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure is all mine, I would say. So, would you like to kick us off with a brief background as to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name's John. I'm the co-founder of a creative agency based in Birmingham called One Black Bear. We've been going for 22 years this year. We work mainly across advertising, but all realms of marketing, and including design, web work, digital, everything you can think of that is, basically falls within that remit for a creative agency.
22 years in the business, as we were talking before the interview. So, what do you attribute your growth to?
Sheer hard work and determination. Yeah, you got 22 years of basically a roller coaster of putting a lot of effort in. And that's the key to it is effort, effort, effort. Pushing yourself, pushing your people, pushing your clients, just to be doing better and better. And then people start to take notice of the great work that you do for people. And hopefully it kind of starts to snowball that you get a reputation for knowing what you're doing and doing it a little bit better than they can get elsewhere. And people that start to come to you and ask you to help them as well. So
So,
if you want growth, just put the effort in.
yes, definitely. I'm sure a lot of efforts might have been there, to be in the business for 22 years. What has been your biggest learning, John, as a owner of the business running successfully?
Biggest learning is how bloody difficult it is. It is hard work. There's no getting away from it. I think a lot of people look at, in the early days of trying to set up their own business, no matter what it is, no matter what industry you're in,
Yeah.
you look at it and think, oh, you have these end goals, and you think, this is going to be great, and and to start off with the adrenaline and the excitement, just get you through. But you have to knuckle down and work so hard, and then there's the challenges as you grow in terms of personnel, of the people that you work with, the people that either that you need to move them on, or they want to move on themselves, and then you've got to replace them. And suddenly you go from, I mean, my background is a creative. I'm still very much a creative, but you very quickly have to learn every different strand of business. You have
Yeah.
to learn everything. You have to suddenly be, it is an old cliche that, the business owner of a small business is the guy that opens up and sweeps the floor and then locks up. And it's true. And,
True.
you have to do everything in between. And especially if you want a business, there's lots of
Yeah.
people out there that want to set up a business that is just them as a consultant or as a freelancer. And that's absolutely fine. And I admire the people who do that as well. But our dream when we set up was always to create a small agency, and that means bringing on people, bringing in people who can do the job better than you can. You've got to be able to sort of take those guys on board, not let your egos get in the way. You've got to be able to manage all these people. But I think as soon as you sort of put the pressure on yourself to say, I want this to be an agency. I want this to be a business that employs people. That is more than just me. Those pressures mount on you. I remember our very, very first employee, way back. I think it was 2004. So we've been going about a year. Benny joined us, and it
Mhm.
was terrifying for us because suddenly you've got another mouth to feed. Suddenly there was that kind of, that's a salary that has to go out on the dot every single month on top of
Oh,
everything else.
yeah.
And but once you get the first one out of the way, you start to snowball with it. But that first one, it was scary. And I think you have to learn then, in terms of looking after people's welfare. You have to look after people in terms of, you're then responsible for them, for their happiness for 8, 9 hours a
Yeah.
day. You have to make sure that they're in a nice environment, that basically they feel free to work at the best ability.
Yeah.
and you can get the best of it. And all these things are things you have to learn. And there's a very big difference between being the owner and everything stops with you and being a manager in a business with a team. Yeah, and it is, yeah, anyone who's done it, who's made that switch, will tell you that there is a vast difference between managing a team and then suddenly having your own people that you are 100% responsible for. And I think the biggest learning is learning how to deal with that, as well as focusing on trying to do a good job of what you do. And keep it. I mean, we set up the business purely because we wanted to enjoy what we do every day and to go to a place that we wanted to go to. And then we want to create that environment for other people to want to do that and to want to enjoy doing what they do and enjoy getting up on a Monday morning and traveling in, even though we now only work Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays in the office. But yeah, I think there's a real sort of shock to the system when you first start doing it and say, right, there is no one else for me to ask. There's no one, if someone's got a grievance, I can't push that upwards anymore. It comes to me and I've got to make those decisions. So that's quite a big thing.
I'm sure, John, and you rightly said that team is an essential part for any business, be it any type. And talking about the team, what qualities do you look for in employees when you hire them, and how do you foster a positive and a productive work environment?
I look for people with enthusiasm. I think
Hmm.
that's mainly the first thing that you look for. I mean, they've got to have talent. You're not getting anywhere without talent.
Yeah,
But there are many, many talented people out there that don't have enthusiasm and
yeah,
don't have the right attitude to things. And you've got to look for people who will roll their sleeves up, even at the dirty jobs. And there's jobs that come in that aren't all singing and dancing and really good, but you need people who can say, actually, you know what, I'll take that on and I'll look after it and I'll do a really
yeah,
good job for you and I'll make sure it works. You've got to find those people. They're not easy to find because you want passionate people and, people with talent, but, people who are also humble enough to sort of roll their sleeves up and get stuck in with everybody else.
yeah,
And yeah, but you also want people who have got almost like a can-do attitude of their own of. They're almost, I mean, in a small business like ours, you want self-motivators. You
yeah,
don't want to, I never wanted anyone sitting on my shoulder when I worked for somebody else, and I refuse to sit on other people's shoulders now that we've got our own agency up and running. If you come in, and it's a shock to the system for some people who come in and they quickly find out is you have a hell of a lot of responsibility on your shoulders for what you're going to be doing. No one's going to be sitting here telling you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. We're here to help and you come to us for guidance, but I'm very much if that's your responsibility, then you crack on. And
yeah,
9 times out of 10, the people I'm asking to crack on can do a better job of it than I can. So why get in their way? Just put the structure in around them to make sure that and again, as a creative business, that they've got the time to think creatively. They've got the opportunity to sort of go off in different tangents. A big thing in our world is the ability to do things that are wrong,
yeah,
and that and not be chastised for it, and not to for the world to end because you've come up with an idea that isn't quite right. That's where other things lead to. So you've got to have people who are sort of willing to have that confidence to put their soul out and say, I've had this idea. It might be crap, it might be brilliant. Well, let's have a sit down and work out how we make it more brilliant than it is crap, and let's do it that way. And so those people are quite rare to be able to find those people who are self-motivated, talented, and want to do their absolute best, no matter what the job is. But I think we've got over the years we've had a lot of good people through the door who who've all come with that attitude, and those that quickly you find out that they don't have that attitude, they sort of move on because it's not pressure from myself or Rich or run the business with. It's the pressure from the collective culture. The culture in the agency is to try and do the best we possibly can with
yeah,
everything. And that's not something that's written down on a piece of paper in a handbook. That's just something, that's a vibe in the place. That's a feeling you get. And if you go into a place where everybody else is really motivated and wants to do a great job, and you are the one that doesn't, you quickly feel that pressure yourself and think, this isn't quite for me. Uh,
Absolutely, John. And I think you talked more about the values, which are very essential for your business. And because, John, we also need to ensure that the interview is full of learning. Can I quickly talk about what challenges are you currently facing in your business and how do you plan to address them?
there's many challenges at the moment. I think as an industry, we're faced with quite a lot, which is there's the old saying, in our industry, which is as soon as there's a recession, the first budget to be cut is marketing. The last budget to come back is marketing. Now, there's numerous papers on why that's the biggest mistake that any of our
Yeah.
clients could ever make. But ultimately, you've got an FD sat somewhere saying, "I'm going to put a line through that spreadsheet because I'm focused on tomorrow. I'm not focused on next month." And so you basically, you know, over the years, we've had, since Brexit, COVID, we're now trying to come back yet again on it all. We're having budgets that are kind of not helping big business, and it's not really affecting us that much, but big business are really worried. We've got the problems with tariffs and everything that's going over
Yeah.
across the pond. And again, it makes business nervous. Now, our industry thrives when business is confident and they want to be out there and they want to be making the most. So I think the biggest that like we've got is confidence. So that's on the business side in terms of our clients. But then we've also got the threat of AI coming in. And AI at the moment, it's going, look, it's going to be something else. It's going to be a game changer. It's going to turn, it already is turning everything upside down. But I think you've also got this big nervousness as well. Clients are now looking at it and saying, well, can I do this myself? Can I get this done? Can I get somebody, where I once needed an agency, can I get, somebody in the corner to do this? Now, it's the tools aren't there. I mean, and we've been here many years. We've seen all of these things come in and go out again. We will lean into it. We will learn how to make it work for us the best we possibly can, and the best we possibly can for our clients. And it'll be one of those things that we adapt to, and we already are. We're already using it in various formats. But again, what that does is causes nervousness around everything. And I think that's the biggest challenge our industry is suffering at the moment, is the nerves of our clients, and it's the nerves of all the other industries. And when
Yeah.
they're all really nervous, we're the ones who they're like, oh, should we just hang on that one? Should we, or do we need to go with that? Or should I spend that sort of money at this moment in time? And so I think that's a real challenge. But has it ever been any different? I mean, AI is the latest thing, but has it ever been any different? In 2008, we had the crash when all crashes. And that hit, we're all nervous about that. We've had various wars, we've had various, financial, blow ups. We've now got, the chaos that is currently ongoing. And so you just think, well, yeah, we just get on with it and you ride it. And because you've got no option, you've just got to get through it. You've just got, and again, it comes back to that. You've just got to work harder and harder and harder. And if you can work harder than everybody else around you, you hopefully get through these things relatively unscathed. And you need the right
Agreed.
people around you to do it.
Agreed, John. Couldn't agree more. Talking about it, you've talked a lot about AI, how AI has been a game changer. So, what impact do you think will AI have on your industry?
I think it could be a great leveler. I think, what you're working alongside is, the big creation stuff, the bit, whether it be video, photography,
Yeah.
was the reserve of the people with the deepest pockets. And I think this could be a great leveler in terms of helping make everything a little bit more effective. What, and I could be proven wrong on this in the next couple of years. I still think what it does is it gives the people with creative ideas a little bit more of a leverage to say, actually, I can now make my ideas a reality. I can bring these things to life. what you can't do is teach people how to have creative ideas that easily. So that anybody can type anything into an AI bot and it will spit something out,
Yeah.
but you've got to know what to put in. You've got to have
Yes.
the ideas in the first place. You've also then got to understand what it's giving back to you. Yeah, so I think, although, and rightly so, there's a lot of people really worried and really nervous at the moment about what it's going to do to the creative industries. And
Yeah.
rightly so, they're really nervous. But there's no stopping it. We've got to sort of get to grips with it. And we've got to try and hopefully make it work for us. I mean, rewind, 20 years, 25 years, suddenly, you had photo retouchers that did a load of, then the introduction of all the sort of digital work, digital camera and film stuff, and then Photoshop, and then, and all these things are just developments that we have to take control of and say, well, does it make our lives a little bit easier? Yes, it does, but Photoshop will not do the job for you.
Of
You still
course.
have to do it. There still has to be somebody there with a brain in their head that
Yeah.
says, "I know what I want to achieve, and and I'm thinking completely different to how anybody else is thinking about this." And I think, the strength of creative thinking, especially in our world, is how do you think about things in a way that they haven't been thought of before, which is the antithesis of AI, because AI takes everything that's been thought before and spits it out and regurgitates it in a certain way. Now, where we will win, hopefully, as a creative industry and as marketing, is if the coffee shop has the same access to the tools that Coca-Cola does, then what's the difference between them? Well, Coca-Cola then needs to come back and say, no, we need to think about these things differently. So
Yeah.
we need that human bizarre brain, that ADHD brain that says, no, I'm not going to think about it in that way. I'm going to think about it in this way. I'm going to turn it on its head. I'm going to turn your problem completely on its head and think of it, sideways, upside down, whichever way you possibly can, to come up with something different that then, that gives you the edge over your competitors. And hopefully it will, once all the dust settles from it all, and it will start to come back to actually we do need the bizarreness of the human brain to make all of this work really well.
Rightly said. And John, I think some valid points that you've made. We've talked a lot about your business. Let's quickly touch a bit about your personal life, John. So, I mean, how do you strike that perfect balance between your personal life and the professional one? What's the mantra?
It's very tough. It's very tough. I think, when I first started the business back in 2003, I got a 2-year old at home. My youngest, he came along in 2005, and it was really tough. I was working every hour you could possibly think to get, this business up and off the ground. And basically, left my wife looking after a 2-year old for the first couple of years, and then a newborn, and it didn't let up for quite some years. And it's to get that balance is really, and again, you're talking to anybody who's thinking of maybe setting up their own business, or people who are listening who have set up a business, they've probably been through the same thing of you miss so much. I mean, and it is really, really tough. And as I'm getting older, and, my kids have grown up, you know, it's kind of the wrong way around, because suddenly now I've got a little bit more time because I've got people who can pick things up. But back in the day, I remember working over Christmas because the client needed something, and then it turned out the client didn't need something, and then the client, and then you just think, and then you hate yourself for just giving up, precious time for somebody who didn't deserve you to give up their precious time. When you're caught up in the moment, you're thinking, I've just got to get this done, got to get this done, and it was, for years and years and years, I used to go on holiday and I'd not switch off until probably a couple of days before coming home. And then a couple of days before as soon as you switched off, you're switching back on and you're thinking about what you're going back to. And that's not fair on the people around you. But it's just that's just what takes over. It really, really is tough to get that balance. And if anybody has managed to find it, then hats off to them because it really is a superb achievement to, you know, be trying to balance running, well, starting and running a business and also, making time for everything outside of that business as well. Because you will put so many hours in, and even when you're not absent in
Yeah.
terms of being away from home. Even when you're at home, your mind is racing with what you've got to do with work, and so you struggle to switch off, and even on a night you're up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning worrying about things that are happening at work and what you need to deliver and what you need to do there. And I'd like to say that stops, but it doesn't. I'm now in my early 50s, and I still worry about these things constantly. And I know my business partner Rich, he's exactly the same. And whether that's from a creative perspective, as of us messaging each other with creative ideas, or just worrying about the business and the people and the clients and what's happening and is this getting done and and it all is. It's all in your head, but you can't help it. It's just the way it is.
John, thank you for your honesty. And it is quite inspirational. And I'm sure our audience have learned and picked up so many things so far. So, is there any closing remark or a golden nugget that you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Oh yeah, it's enjoy it. Bloody hell, this is the key to everything. We are, I can say as I'm coming into 30 odd years in the business that I'm in, is just enjoy what you do. You spend so much time doing what you do, at the day to day. Enjoy it. And I know it sounds like, oh, it's all horrid and you can never switch off. But actually sometimes you enjoy not being able to switch off. You enjoy the problems, you enjoy solving things, you enjoy, for me, I enjoy coming up with ideas still for campaigns. I enjoy working on the things that I work on. I actually enjoy the stress of it all. I enjoy the day to day. And I think, you're going to get to the end of a long career. And we've all got to get to the end of it at some point. And some people will be able to honestly say, I really enjoyed that. Now, if you can be one of those few, then you have had a blessed life. If you can say that, because if you spend, 40, 50, 60% of your life at work, or 70, 80% of your time thinking about work, make sure you enjoy that work. And I think that's the key to it for me is, you've got to enjoy what you do. And if you're not enjoying what you do, then, take stock, stop, look around and work out what it is that you're going to enjoy. Because to have 8, 10, 12 hours of your day, every single day, taken up with something that you don't actually get any satisfaction out of or enjoy, that's a tough life. And I think, no one deserves that. We should all be able to find a bit of joy in doing what we do.
I think we've got the headline already. So thank you so much for that, John. Thank you so much for your time today. It was
Oh, thank
great
you.
knowing you, learning so much about your journey, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And to everyone watching, I look forward to see you in my next episode. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.